Hey YouTube, what's up? This is Steven and welcome back. Alright, so in this video, since I've spoken about, you know, dark-skinned men's dating preferences, light-skinned women's dating preferences, and dark-skinned women's dating preferences, I thought, hey, perhaps I should speak about light-skinned men's dating preferences. And as well, someone in my comment section of one of the videos had, mentioned like some light-skinned men has spoken about light-skinned men's dating preferences, right? So, like, well, I think she may have a point about that. So let's get into this. Let's talk about this for a moment. um, who do you think, let's say, light-skinned slash biracial men who identify as black, part black, identify as black, right? I'm just probably going to just use light skin as the blanket term, but it does include biracial and mixed multiracial dudes as well who are part black and identify as black. All right. So when you think of light-skinned men and the women that they date, stereotypically, right? Who do you think comes to mind? What type of women come to mind, right? Do you think it's like dark-skinned women that light-skinned men tend to date? Do you think it's light-skinned women that light-skinned men tend to date? Brown-skinned peanut butter women that light-skinned men tend to date? Outside the community, that light-skinned men tend to date, right? Because when it comes to like other groups, like the dark-skinned men, dark-skinned women, light-skinned women, it seems like you can kind of pinpoint what they're into, right? At least stereotype what they're into, right? Like, oh, the dark-skinned dudes like the light-skinned chicks, the light-skinned chicks like the dark-skinned dudes, and the dark-skinned women like the dark-skinned dudes, right? But what about the light-skinned men? Who do they like, right? And honestly, I think it's sort of it really varies, honestly, honestly, I think it varies. It seems like you can kind of find light-skinned men sort of like out and about, like out and about as far as outside the community, but you can also find them inside the community too. And I think it sort of breaks down like this, right? Let me break it down for you as far as like, the generalizations and stereotypes when it comes to who light-skinned men tend to go for, right? And what factors into that, right? I think, for one, moms factor into that, right? If you are a light-skinned man and you have, say, a white mom, you're probably more likely to date someone who's white, or perhaps a non-black mom. Let's say that a non-black mom, because it could be the light-skinned person could be part Asian, part Hispanic, part white, part Middle Eastern, etc. Right? So if you have a non-black mom, you're probably more likely to date someone who is maybe a bit more reflective of your non-black mom, right? Especially if those non-black women are really in your family and also the community that you were raised in, right? Like Derek Jeter, for instance, he tends to date women who are, like white, perhaps Hispanic, you know. I think maybe like the blackest he's gone is like Mariah Carey. That's probably like the blackest that Derek Jeter has gone, as far as his women are concerned. I could be missing one, but I haven't seen like a monoracial black woman in the mix, and that's his business. I'm just saying, right? Like Rick Fox. The last woman I think he was linked to was Elijah Dushku. And he was married to Vanessa Williams, who's also like, who's light skinned. She's like, multi-generational mix, right? Both her parents identify as black, but you can tell that, you see um, the non-black influence in her too, but she identifies as black, right? So that brings up something about, light-skinned dudes, light-skinned mixed biracial dudes, right? Being with light-skinned mixed biracial women, because that happens too. As quiet as it's kept, that does happen. You don't tend to see it as much, but it does happen. Because usually, like a lot of these light-skinned women, and light-skinned biracial women, be on this, they want, a chocolate cane, they want some chocolate thunder in their life, right? And I think oftentimes women be saying that kind of like to fit in and, you know, not be seen as different and not be shamed for liking who they like. So they tend to maybe keep their preferences on the low, you know, because you can be shamed as a black woman for liking light-skinned black men. People will shame you for that. Black women will shame black women for that. Let alone the dark-skinned men. The black women will shame the black women for that for some reason, you know. But I'm like, well, wouldn't that make it more dark-skinned dudes for you? Like, so that would be kind of like less competition that you would deal with. So it's kind of like, I don't know. But that's a layered situation, very nuanced, and a lot goes into that. Another video for another day. So yeah, like, as you can see, like, the parent, the non-black parent, but oftentimes I think a lot of the light-skinned dudes do go for women of color. You know, they go for white women too, but a lot of times they are women of color, right? Either they are biracial like them, or light-skinned like them, or they're like non-black, maybe Hispanic. I see Hispanic women in the mix a lot, right? Some Asian women too, but definitely Hispanic, right? But of course, when it comes to like light-skinned men who have like two black parents, that's when it kind of like changes a little bit. Because if they're light-skinned and they have like a light-skinned mom, then they still may gravitate towards light-skinned women. But if they're like light-skinned but they have a dark-skinned mom, then that may influence their decision to gravitate towards darker-skinned women, right? And also, I feel like sometimes when it comes to lighter-skinned people in general, I think sometimes like we as a collective can sort of sometimes maybe, I don't want to say use, but I guess for lack of a better word, like use dark-skinned people, I guess, as a way to sort of like, you know, show that we're down with the community. And it may be legitimately they like the dark-skinned person, you know, whoever they're with, right? It could be like a legitimate thing. It's not like, oh, let me just get this person and do a photo op. It's probably not like that. But sometimes I think lighter-skinned people, lighter-skinned people in the community may feel like they kind of need to, you know, declare their blackness or make up for their blackness, or sometimes, you know, you know. As far as like celebrities that we can name, like let's say J. Cole, for instance, I think his wife is like light-skinned too, like racially ambiguous light-skinned, probably identifies as black. Jesse Williams' wife, light-skinned, you know, probably identifies as black. I don't know if she's mixed light-skinned or just light-skinned, right? I don't know, but she light-skinned. Colin Kaepernick's fiance is kind of like a lighter-skinned too, right? I think Michael Ealy's wife might be Hispanic. Let's see. Who else we can name? Chris Brown. The women he tends to gravitate towards tend to be sort of exotic, quote unquote. Like I say, like, you know, he tends to gravitate towards like lighter skinned women because I think his mom is light skinned too, so that may factor into it too. And Chris Brown is like, um, a dark skinned dude on the inside, right? Y'all know Chris Brown, dark skin on the inside. So, gravitating towards like lighter skin, like Rihanna and Karuchi, right? His baby mama is Hispanic though. That's why I would say like exotic, Drake, he's sort of kind of like dated around. He's been with like Serena Williams for a sec, and then J Lo, um, and as well as some. I think like some maybe like porn stars maybe too. I hear that come up too. Them rumors come up, but it seemed like Drake kind of was like kind of like here and there, right? You know, maybe his type is not really a set type as far as like a look is concerned, right? And a quick sidebar about Serena Williams. I'm probably gonna get a little flack for this, but I really wish she wouldn't have. I wish she would have like stuck it out in the community. And this guy herself, a light skinned, beige, racially ambiguous Negro. It seemed like she got a taste for the exotic, right? Just do what these dark skinned dudes been doing for years. Just get you a beige Negro, a beige nigga in your life. That way you can still be in the community. You can still bring him and your kids to the cookout, right? But now it's a little different though. But it's been done, so it's nothing we can really do about that. But yeah, I kind of wish she would have kind of like stuck in the community. Me personally, I don't bash her, but I'm just saying, this isn't meant to be a bashing type of thing, she can have her preferences like the rest of us, right? But that's just my personal opinion. I think that it would have been a little easier for her and her child to be a part of the community in total, right? Instead of to go outside of the community and come back into the community. That could happen. She could want her child to identify as black, right? She's black, So she may feel like her child should identify as black too, right? But sidebar over. Back to this. All right. So yeah, who's another light-skinned dude in the media that we can name? I guess Cash Warren, right? He's with Jessica Alba. They've been going strong for a while. T.I. is with Tiny. She's light skinned, well, mixed and light skinned. Let's see. There's a light skinned mixed dude who's married to one of the Spice Girls, Baby Spice, right? So, when you do see these examples of light skinned dudes in the media, oftentimes you do tend to see them with either women that are more or less their shade or women who are lighter, Perhaps Barack Obama, because I feel like Michelle Obama and Barack Obama more or less had the same skin tone. I say that she's like a brown skinned woman, But oftentimes when you do see light skinned dudes in the media, you tend to not see them as much with darker skinned women, like dark skinned women for some reason. Even though that does happen, I guess Apollo Nita and Phaedra Parks, right? That was one. But dark skinned women may not feel so like, happy about that one because they may feel like, oh, well, that was a come up for him, not for her. And that's true, right? What else? I think Fantasia Barrino has a light-skinned man in her life. I'm not sure what he's about. But I feel like it probably is to come up for him more than her. So it seems like sometimes it seems like, I don't know, it could be like, okay, is these light-skinned dudes trying to come up on dark-skinned women? You can probably make that argument if you see it long enough. But I will say, you know, Cheryl Lee Ralph, right? Y'all know Cheryl Lee Ralph, right? She played like Moesha's stepmom on Moesha, right? She's married to a light-skinned man who's a senator. So I think that was sort of like, you know, kind of like she kind of came up in a way, and he kind of has somewhat of a like, not necessarily like a come up, but I think for her maybe it was more of a come up because he's a senator, right? And that's somewhat prestigious, right? So that was a come up, you know. But you don't really see that relationship blasted in the media, right? And what else we can name, or who else we can name in the media? Shoot. But why do you think that is? Like, I can't name anyone right off the bat in the media, right? But I can use some examples in my personal life as far as like the light-skinned dudes I went to high school with, right? Which, by the way, we never really had any like, you know, like, you know, camaraderie or anything like, oh, you know, us light-skinned dudes got to stick together. No, not at all. But so let's see. One light-skinned dude who posted very recently on Facebook, and he hasn't posted it in a while actually. But he had posted you know, on Facebook. I'm like, oh, you know, you guys still going strong, all right. So he's with a dark-skinned woman, you know, and he, I believe, is like an engineer or something like that. Something like. I don't know what his wife is. His wife could be an engineer too, or his wife could just be like, you know, whatever. You know, I don't know. So, you know, that was a relationship with a dark-skinned woman, right? And then another dude, light-skinned dude at the school I graduated from, the high school. He is with, as far as I know, still a, you know, part black, part Asian woman. Kind of like a light skin, but you see some Asian in her facial features, right? And he's light skinned too. So again, I guess a light skin with a light skin, or, you know, a light skinned dude going for the mixed chick, you know. Who else? Another guy who who's light skinned. He was dating our valedictorian, who happened to be an Asian woman, or, you know, Asian, all right? And our school was like majority black, so that's a bit like, oh yeah, you know, it's always the Asian valedictorian, right? But yeah, he was like a light-skinned black dude, and he was dating our valedictorian, who was an Asian woman. Let's see. Another dude, light-skinned dude, was dating another Asian girl, Asian woman, right? But I think he wound up moving on and dating like this dark-skinned woman who also attended our school too. I don't know how their relationship is now, but I think a while ago they were dating. I don't know if they had kids, but I don't know. Who else? Who else? You know, I know this light-skinned dude that I went to college with. His wife and the mother of his children is light-skinned, right? So I guess it does seem like a lot of light-skinned dudes be gravitating towards like either women who are a bit like light-skinned as well, or either outside the community. And I think that plays a part in some black women, particularly some darker-skinned black women, and their preferences, right? Because something came up in the comment section of like a forum I was in, and I think it was from a dark-skinned woman, and she said something to the extent of like, well, I wouldn't waste my time, you know, um, desiring the light-skinned men because they don't seem to really be interested in me. And I think that plays a part in it. Kind of like how some dark-skinned women feel in regards to light-skinned men. Because I think the dark-skinned women who are into light-skinned men tend to get attention from light-skinned men a lot, right? Like when they go out, those are the dudes who try to holler at them, you know? Especially if other dudes, perhaps the dark-skinned dudes, aren't trying to holler, then it's like, well, perhaps, I should just give this guy a chance. He seems like he's interested, and, as well, they may have had positive experiences with light-skinned men. So I think that plays a part in some dark-skinned women, as well as just women in general, but some dark-skinned women's preferences towards lighter-skinned men, too. But it is something interesting to think about, because it does seem like, a lot. Light-skinned dudes kind of seem to be kind of like here, there, and everywhere a lot of times. Really, to keep it real, if you were to split hairs and talk about who dates outside of the community more, light-skinned men or dark-skinned men, honestly, I think it would probably be light-skinned men. Honestly. If we were to split it down the middle and analyze it and do it percentage-wise, I think, because there's more dark-skinned men than light-skinned men in the community. So we're going to have to do it by a percentage. But I think, honestly, I think the dark-skinned dudes, I think we as a collective would beat the dark-skinned dudes. But, is it because we maybe don't feel welcomed in the community at times or feel desired by women in the community? Or is it because we just don't have a desire for them? Because it could go both ways, But I will say, for me personally, like a lot of the men, I'll talk about some of the men in my family who are light skinned, right? So the men, like, as far as like my father and his brothers, my father and 2 out of 3 of his brothers married black women and had children with black women, right? And the black women were, kind of like a bit darker, probably like brown skin, dark skin type of black women, right? One of my father's brothers wind up, going outside the community and having a child with a white woman, marrying and having a child with a white woman, right? So in my like immediate family on my father's side, I would say I do tend to see, like, I guess darker skinned women in the family, as well. Like my cousin, I have a cousin who's light skinned and he's with a dark skinned woman. I have another cousin who's light skinned and he's with an Asian woman, right? And if I go further on to my extended family, like a lot of them who are light skinned, like one is with a white woman, right? One was with a Latina. What else? I think another one was with a white woman, right? And a quick sidebar on that story, right quick. I was at the family reunion a while ago, and I had saw this young lady at the family reunion, and I was like, who's this white chick here? Just because I know there's white people who have married into our family, but I was just like, well, she's kind of young, and I don't see her really attached to anybody. How did she get here? But then I had heard her, like, she was like, oh, hey, Dad. And then I saw her dad, I'm like, oh, she's part black? I didn't know that. I surprised, like, oh, I didn't know she was part black. All right, but back to business. Yeah, like, so, but then there's another light skinned dude who's with a like a dark brown skinned woman. Jews. So it's everywhere. Like, we kind of like, that's the thing, and I think that's part of the reason why maybe black women do kind of feel some type of a way about light skinned dudes, and maybe gravitate towards darker skinned dudes because they maybe feel like darker skinned dudes may be checking for them more than light skinned dudes. Because who, let's see, let's set it up like this. As a black woman, who, whether you're interested or not, who do you think you have a better chance with? A light-skinned man or a dark-skinned man? Who do you think would be interested in you? Who do you think would try to holler at you, and pursue a relationship with you? Out of the two, if you had to place a bet, like, who do you think would be more likely to pursue you? All right, probably the darker skinned dude. Um, so I can probably understand some black women's, like, now that I really think about this, maybe understand perhaps why some black women perhaps have the preferences that they have. Because they may feel like, well, are these dudes really interested in someone like me? They seem to be really chasing after these, like, non-black women, So I'm gonna go over here to the dark-skinned dude because he don't seem to be, he seemed to be more in the community, right? But yeah, when you really think about it, like, I think light-skinned men as a collective are kind of like in a lot of different places, right? They in the community, they outside the community, they on the fringes of the community, all type of stuff, right? So I think it's sort of, I guess if I had to pinpoint and choose a stereotype light-skinned black men's dating preferences, it seems to be geared towards light, like the same skin tone as them or lighter, right? Me personally, in my dating preferences, I tend to gravitate towards like women who are darker than me, personally. Um, but I have been, doing some self-reflection and thinking about that. I'm like, well, should I? Like, where does that come from? Being sure, like, could I be color struck? You know? But I think it has to do with like the family that I was raised in, the community that I was raised in, the schools that I went to, my neighborhood. You know, a lot of times the hot chicks were kind of like the dark skinned chicks. Like there was this dark skinned chick at school who was like kind of like the hot chick. Like a lot of dudes like, you know, because there were light skinned women at the school and they did get play and attention and stuff. But I think some of the darker skinned women at the school got some play and attention too, you know? And I think for me, like, I feel like I do see light skinned women who are attractive, definitely. But I think sometimes for me, like, I think the light skinned women probably has to have a little something extra, maybe. It's not that she's not attractive, because she is, but it's just that, I don't know, maybe the features that she has doesn't quite appeal to me, since it's like, well, those features may appeal to maybe someone who doesn't have those features, perhaps. You know. But I guess when it comes to darker skinned women, like thinking back on some of the dark skinned women that I went to school with, I was like, well, yeah, I wonder what they up to, right? Like, who they with? To a couple. Now that I really think about it, I'm like, oh, man, they probably got snatched up. Some dudes probably, either put a ring on it or put a baby in them, or both, But yeah. Okay, this time I kind of thought the video would be a little longer though. All right, I came into the video thinking this is probably gonna be a longer video. All right, so there you have it. My screen been messing up. I'm making some weird, like, I don't know, some weird coloration looks. I didn't really notice that until now. My bad. I hope that isn't too distracting. But thanks a lot for watching. Feel free to comment. Feel free to subscribe. Feel free to give me a thumbs up. The feedback and support are extremely appreciated and extremely valued. Thanks a lot. Until the next video, adios and goodbye for now.